people to briefly talk, and we don't know what they're going to say. So we're just going to go right to that.
Hi, I'm Marco Annunziata with GE, and I want to tell you something that I'm very excited about, which is the fact that we are now on the cusp of a digital industrial revolution, which will change the economy, and it will bring greater opportunities, more and better jobs, and it will probably be the most powerful example of how technology can be a force for good at the service of all of us. Now, over the last several years, we've been told over and over again that digital innovation has no economic impact, which might well be why it's not in the presidential debates. And that if it does have an economic impact, it will be negative, higher unemployment, more income inequality. I'm seeing already something completely different, a convergence of digital and physical technologies which is turning industrial machines into intelligent, interconnected devices which have greater efficiency, which can boost the production of renewable energy and can reduce energy consumption overall and can increase productivity across industries. I see digital tools that augment the abilities of workers of all skill levels thanks to intuitive user interfaces. And all this is the industrial internet, and it's now being accelerated by the industrial app economy, which will set the development of these solutions on an exponential pace of growth. This is tremendously exciting. Over the next 10 years, as it scales, it will transform the way we work and add up to $15 trillion to the global economy, provided we manage the transition, which is going to be disruptive, by focusing on skills, cybersecurity, and openness. If we do that, we will reap enormous benefits, and over the next 10 years, we will rewrite the textbooks on the economy and on industrial innovation. Thanks.
Thank you, Marco. Brian Ford of MIT Media Lab, formerly the White House.
What if we could eliminate media paywalls? What if when I needed to send you money, I didn't have to ask, are you with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Venmo, PayPal? Because when I asked if I can send you an email, I don't ask if you use Gmail or Hotmail. What if I could send you money as easy as I can send you an email? What if I could send you a concert ticket as easy as an email, but I know and you know for sure when you buy that ticket from me that you are the actual owner and I didn't sell that PDF to 10 other people? And what if government started to adopt this? What if government started to create car title and put property title onto the blockchain, and it made the transfer of those ownerships as easy as putting it from my wallet to your wallet? After all, Hernando de Soto in this article will talk about how you can unlock trillions of dollars of dead capital in the developing world by clearing up property title and possibly putting it on the blockchain. And then what if you could go a step further? And they said, well, that was neat. What if we start distributing social welfare on the blockchain? And millions or even billions of people started to have digital wallets, and they could start to receive financial services. And we'd stop using this term unbanked, because we don't call them the unlandlined, and instead we gave them financial services how they want to have financial services. Because all of a sudden, Silicon Valley startups would have access to cloud-like infrastructure, which reduces their need to invest in millions of dollars in infrastructure and instead just work on a product. And now they can have access to that bank-like infrastructure with the blockchain. I think these what ifs are things that we're starting to think about at the MIT Media Lab with the Digital Currency Initiative. Folks like Joey Ito have said this is one of the most important emerging technologies in the next decade. And Nicholas Negroponte, who David mentioned, has said this is one of the most important things you can work on. So if you want to work on these what ifs and help us get to the future right now, skip the morning bike ride yoga session at 7 a.m. and join us on the panel tomorrow morning where we'll talk about the future of finance.
Hi, looks like I'm live. Well, I'm going to actually add some extra color to what I think Marco talked about, because we're both from large industrial conglomerates, and I think we're both very, very passionate about the Internet of Things, and not just the Internet of Things in general, but the Internet of what I like to call things that matter, the things that will be able to tackle these large-scale problems that are going to end up having broad societal impact. And I couldn't be more delighted to be here, actually, for the next 2 days and enjoy talking about that some more with some of you. One thing in particular I'm very passionate about is shifting our thinking from problem solution, or problem management rather, to problem prevention. And there's plenty of examples, I think, that really illustrate why this is important. So, for example, we spend billions of dollars worldwide. Actually, in my home country, or my original home country, the UK, something in the region of $13 billion annually on treating type 2 diabetes alone, which is inherently a preventable disease. Another example that's very topical here in California, water. So we got a light sprinkle today, which probably won't even touch the sides on our reservoirs. But really, is it just about lack of rain? What about the infrastructure itself? How efficient is our water infrastructure in the United States? Well, the bad news is not so much. Researchers estimate that something in the region of 2 trillion gallons of drinking water are lost annually across the United States. And these are all the types of problems that if we shift to a more preventive way of thinking, we can have an impact on with the Internet of Things. Thanks.
Eileen. I just want to say also, we are going to, you could get up, please, Eileen, stand up. We're going to continue this after these people who are the official designees with anybody in the room who wants to throw out their own 90-second thought about what really matters right now. So be thinking about that. And Eileen, take it away.
Hi, thank you for having me here. So I do technology and media in very low-tech environments and high-conflict environments, such as Afghanistan. And to kind of set the context to something that's been on my mind a lot is a little bit about Afghanistan. It's a country where there are 1.2 million internet users in an overall population of 30 million. 800,000 to 900,000 of those users are on Facebook. So Facebook Zero is working in country fantastically well. But what's really interesting is that social media in the Afghan context, and what I suspect in other contexts like that, has come to mean something differently. And it's being shared and it's reaching populations in a really different way. In the West, we're talking a lot now about peer-to-peer mobile technology and mobile social networks, how WeChat, Snapchat, WhatsApp, all of these different networks are changing how we're connecting. And that has been happening in Afghanistan and other contexts like it for some time through SMSs that are meant to be shared throughout a whole community, or through Bluetooth technology that shares what's online and what's offline throughout the country, despite that 1.2 million internet penetration. So these are really interesting questions, and they're even more relevant, I think, now. Because of the security situation, not just in the country where I work, but also throughout the Middle East. And what I'm talking about is with violent extremism and the extremely effective ways that groups like ISIS are using Twitter and peer-to-peer social networking, their own apps that not only share information, but also post to all of their followers Twitter feeds and social media feeds at the same time. So the things that I'm thinking about and that are, I think, of great concern are how do we create technology platforms and integrated media and social media strategies that not only are getting at these emerging social media users and getting them to pay attention to us, but to engage and become a part of the solution. And for all of the businesses here, how do we work together with you, with civil society, and with governments around the world to make this truly an integrated solution? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessie Hempel with Wired. I want to talk about empathy. It builds a lot on what David was talking about. So I've been thinking about how we use technology to deepen empathy. And mostly I've been seeing examples of where it's not working. So if you think about empathy, and most of you, I think, would easily define it as the ability to share your feelings and specifically to shift your point of view and see the world through other people's eyes. I think we have to start by understanding why this is critical. It's not just a feel-good, it's a must-have. It helps us to love, it helps us to learn, it helps us to communicate and to cooperate. It's fundamental to what a democracy is made of. Technology's promise is that it can help us to deepen and strengthen those ties, and it really does. David mentioned the cardboard VR that arrived in my Manhattan apartment this morning with my New York Times. This morning, I was in Manhattan with my cardboard VR. And I was standing in these experiences I could never have had before, in the eyes of these children I never would have met. I was seeing the world through their eyes. That's powerful stuff. But too often, I also see the ways that technology robs us of our ability to empathize. I teach a course at NYU, for example, where every year it feels harder for me to get the students to talk to each other about their work. It's as if they don't have a set of tools that would help them to engage face-to-face with their work. I see that as a problem. And then earlier this year, I wrote a story about a Facebook sabbatical I took, and I got more email from readers than I had ever gotten before, and they were all describing these awful psychological situations. They wanted an end to it. Now, I think Facebook is a great thing. I don't mean to criticize it, but we must figure out how to embrace the best uses of these tools. It's imperative. It's important. That's all I got.
Thanks, Jesse.
Hello. I have a question for you. Is there a more human experience than health?
Can we get the right idea?
Illness and wellness, these are humanity's oldest and most defining experiences. And today we know more about our health than ever before. And in just the last very few centuries, we've really gone from very little understanding, the four humors, to very deep understanding of the human genome. And plus, thanks to the inexorable force of Moore's law, the volume of knowledge has grown exponentially. An example, 1 million gigabytes. That's the amount of health-related data each person is expected to generate in their lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, that's equivalent to 300 million books. So one would think that with all the information and technology and advances, that the United States would be the healthiest nation on earth. Not true. We rank at the very bottom of 11 developed countries in terms of access, efficiency, and most embarrassingly, health outcomes. And this isn't because we have a lack of drugs or services or education, and heaven knows the information to solve chronic preventable diseases like diabetes that was just mentioned. No, what's standing in our way is our inability to sift through all that information to deliver the right data in the right way to the right people in a meaningful way that'll make a difference in their lives. So what's the answer to this tangle of data and disease? It's simple. I believe communication is the cure. So we're gathered here today to talk about human values and technology and empathy, and my challenge to all of us is to consider how we can employ technology to humanize the health data sphere. And it's no exaggeration to say that it's a matter of life and death. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Garrett Nyman. I'm co-founder and CEO of College Spring, which is a nonprofit that'll help 50,000 inner-city kids be academically prepared for college in the next 5 years. And every time I go into a low-income school in the Bay Area, I meet kids who still don't have a smartphone. I meet kids in New York City who their school doesn't have broadband internet. I even meet kids in South Los Angeles who are almost adults, have never been to the beach. And the thesis I'd like to share with you today is that technology and innovation without intentionality dramatically increases inequality in our world. And when we think about innovation, we think it democratizes. So Uber is everyone's private driver, or Khan Academy is free education for everyone. But very few of these products and services really are for everyone. That poor people are never going to be able to pay for a service like Uber. Uneducated folks are less likely to tap into educational technology and online resources and so forth. And what you have is an impact where technology widens gaps as opposed to closing them. But there is another way to do this, which is to partner with the big institutions that serve poor people and build those collaborations so that that partnership happens and they gain access to those services that otherwise were middle class and upper class services. So think Apple in terms of all the computers they brought to schools. Think of Facebook and the work they're doing now to democratize internet access. These are challenging, complicated partnerships. They might be a little bit less scalable and the kind of partnerships that entrepreneurs and venture capitalists sometimes try to avoid, but they're hugely important for having equitable progress in our society. Thank you.
There are three things that are very much on my mind at the moment. And these are the interrelated issues of privacy, cybersecurity, and press freedom, or freedom of expression, if you like. Now, in Britain, which I think we'd all agree is, has one of the most vibrant democracies in the world, we've seen the line between privacy, the protection of privacy, and the freedom to publish information in the public interest moving towards the favor of privacy. We have in our security forces powers ever increasing to monitor the activities of private individuals, of course, particularly in the digital arena, understandably to combat terrorism. As a global publisher of news and information, you know, we too have ever increasing quantities of highly sensitive personal information on our databases, driving us to increase our investment in our own cyber defenses. And for me as the CEO of a company, I think the challenge to balance these things is only increasing. And it's an issue, or issues that are very personal to me, because as a young man, I grew up in apartheid South Africa, and I lived in a society with very restricted freedom of the press and the freedom of expression and overbearing security forces. So these are very real issues, and I look forward to discussing them more with you during the next 2 days.
Hi, I'm Helen Wong from Teaming Ventures in Shanghai. For me, the potential of technology in China is really interesting because as economic growth is slowing down, a lot of traditional sectors are actually looking to embrace technology even more. And the traditional sectors in China are very inefficient. So for example, the retail sector, there are many layers of distribution. So making it e-commerce actually a more better customer experience and a more better way to access for customers. And I think for another trend that I'm very excited about is empowerment of the individual. For example, we recently invested in this one person who is an online celebrity. And he's able to give his views on WeChat and also develop his video content on Youku, which is like the equivalent of YouTube. And based on that, build a business selling books that he recommends on the internet platform. So I think that's a very important trend, this empowerment of the individual. And on the perils of technology, I would say that in China, there are a lot of people who use it to spread false rumors, for example, to manipulate the stock market or to attack their competitors. So that is, unfortunately, a negative thing that it makes it harder to filter out the truth in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And you know, it's interesting to me how many of those comments tied into things I was saying at the beginning. Kind of amazing, because we really didn't script. All we did was pick the people. We said, say what you want to say. We've got a few more minutes, since I went on a little long at the beginning, maybe not as much as we would have had. But anybody who has a comment about their own feeling about how we ought to think about technology and values, or anything else that maybe has been stimulated by what they've heard so far? Michael, can we get the mic over to Michael? Do we have a mic handler here? Okay, good.
Well, part of what I want to hear is we talked
Michael Miller.
Michael Miller, Ziff Brothers and PC Magazine, is why, you know, for years technology has driven increases in productivity. The last few years, that seems to have stopped, and the question is, what's happened to productivity? We've got all the entrepreneurs here say we're reinventing things. GE, $15 trillion of increased benefits. Doesn't show up in any of the statistics, and I'm curious if anybody has any good ideas why.
You want to say anything about that, Marco? Can you grab that mic again? I mean, you might as well, right? He's the guy to ask. He's the economist for GE.
So already the first time that we had an internet revolution in the 80s and 90s, people said, we've had computers for 10 years, where is the productivity? It takes time. Over the last few years, we've had very little investment. So the innovation we're seeing have not scaled through industry yet. It's going to take a few more years of investment for these things to really be introduced in companies, in factories, and also for industries to change the way they operate and be able to really exploit these new technologies. We have to change the way we work for this thing to really take effect. So don't look at the numbers today and be fooled in thinking the potential is not there. Just focus on what we need to do to make it work. Because when you look at individual applications, you see at the micro level 5%, 10%, 20% improvements in efficiency. So the trick is how do we scale them as quickly as possible?
Thanks very much, Marco. Okay, back here. Identify yourself, please.
Mark Bonchek with Shift Thinking. So the thing that I keep focusing on is that we just have an instinct to go straight into what to do about all of this. And that we don't take enough time to stop and say, how do we think about all of this? And that what's happening is the pace of change is such that we used to be able to wait for the next generation. You know, if anyone knows Thomas Kuhn's work on scientific revolution and paradigms, you could just wait for the next generation to adopt the new mental models. And the pace of change means that we can't wait for the next generation. And I think this is the first generation that has to update our thinking in the middle of our careers, in the middle of our lifespans as organizations. And I don't think we have the approaches on how to update our thinking, to unlearn as well as learn. And so the thing that we heard a lot of these talks already are saying, we have to shift our thinking. We have to develop new ways of thinking. How do we do that? Because our educational system is about learning, not unlearning.
I'm really glad you said that, Mark, and I think that's going to come up frequently throughout the next 2 days, although I have to say, I think it's shocking, again, how little that recognition of that need is discussed. And I hope that maybe after you leave here, you'll feel a little more passionate about that. Where are you pointing, Alex? Oh, there, please.
Hi, I'm David Rowan, editor of British Wired.
Hey, good to have you.
And Helen made me think, this is a great California-based audience. I know people have traveled, but I was in China last week. I spent a week talking to about 20 startups. And I think we need to rethink China, not as the place stealing ideas from the West, but now it's innovating and the West should be learning from it. I'll give you very quickly 3 examples. WeChat, 700 and something million active monthly users. You can now do everything from book a medical appointment to book a flight inside the app. I've just done a story about Facebook Messenger, which is now trying to do a very similar thing as a platform for all businesses. Xiaomi, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, 45 billion valuation. We think of it as a very, very low-cost smartphone company. In fact, they are trying to be an ecosystem, and they are, rather than producing ancillary products themselves, investing in about 60 companies, startups, because they've realized the startups can move more quickly than they can. And that's how they see their future. And the third thing is, the phrase I kept hearing in these startups is, we're a 996 company. And I said, what does that mean? You know, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. So whether we think that's a quality of work life that we want here, that's what we're up against.
You mean 90 hours?
9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
9 a.m. to,
6 days a week.
Ooh, is that more than 90 hours? Anyway, that's a lot of hours. I'm glad you said that. And by the way, in the article about agriculture that I wrote and spent a lot of time reporting in this magazine that we're giving all you, it says China almost certainly will leapfrog everybody else in this area. They're already investing massively, mostly secretly in it. And Drew Purvis and I were just talking about this, wherever Drew is, earlier, about we both believe China is going to lead in many of these technologies. So who wants to say something else? Please.
Terry Stanovsky, Salk Institute. So education was mentioned. I think that everyone here welcomes the great speed and acceleration with which technology is changing everything. But, you know, most humans, after they finish their schooling, don't have an opportunity to very easily change their brains. But there is another...
Speaking as a brain scientist.
Yes, I'm a neuroscientist. So how many people here have taken a MOOC, massively open online course? Okay. So, you know, it was thought that this is going to revolutionize education in terms of colleges and schools. Well, I started my own MOOC. This was about a year ago with Barbara Oakley. And we now have around over 1 million learners over the last year, which is the biggest MOOC at Coursera. And what I discovered was that it's not going to revolutionize colleges or high schools because the big demographic is 25 to 35. So these are people who have finished their college education. By the way, half the people have college or higher education who are taking the MOOC. But these are people who are out of school discovering that they don't have the skills they need to survive in the current digital age that we're living in. And so they're going back, and it's a lot easier to go back to the internet at night to pick up a course on Python or anything else that you need in order to do better at work. So I think that we really should think about that as a very different way to educate the population.
What is your course on, Terry?
Learning how to learn, and it uses what we know about neuroscience to help anybody who has to learn a complex subject such as mathematics to make it easier to both to learn the concepts but also to retain the knowledge.
Wow, thank you. Well, we do that. We want to make it very clear. Conversation is what we're about. We have a whole session Tuesday morning just to talk about what we've learned so far. So, and again, I hope the spirit will be evident throughout the rest of the day.